They said freedom was the end of chains. But what if the chains remained, unseen, heavy, and cruel, wrapped around the heart of society? Elias had been born into slavery. His earliest memories were not of play or laughter, but of the whip cracking across the fields, of long days under a burning sun, and of nights when his stomach ached from hunger. He was told from birth that he belonged to another man, that his hands, his back, and even his future were not his own. But deep inside, Elias carried something his master could never own, dignity. He believed, even as a child, that he was more than what the world told him he was. When freedom finally came after the war, Elias stood with trembling hands as he listened to the announcement. The chains were gone. For the first time in his life, he was a free man. He thought of his mother, who had died before seeing this day, and of his father, sold away when Elias was a boy. He thought of them, and he wept. But freedom, Elias soon discovered, was not what he imagined. The papers said he was equal, but the eyes of the townsfolk said otherwise. When he walked down the street, people looked at him as though the chains were still there. "Stay away from him," one woman whispered to her child. "He's one of them," muttered a storekeeper, turning Elias away. No one wanted to hire him. No one wanted to share a meal with him. The invisible walls of racism stood taller than any prison he had known. At first, bitterness threatened to grow in Elias's heart. He had dreamed of freedom, yet here he was, still unwanted, still judged. But then he remembered something his mother once told him before she died. "They can own your body, Elias, but they can never own your soul. Keep your soul pure, and one day the world will see." And so Elias decided he would live not in anger, but in kindness. He found small jobs, chopping wood, mending fences, carrying water, and though people paid him little, he worked with honesty. When hungry children came near, Elias gave them food, whether black or white. When an elderly neighbor fell sick, he visited and brought water and herbs, even if that neighbor had once turned him away. Some people mocked him, calling him foolish for showing kindness to those who despised him. But Elias believed in something stronger than hate. He believed that hearts could change, just as seasons change. Slowly, the walls around him began to crack. Children, once told not to play near him, now came running to hear his stories by the fire. Some white neighbors, ashamed of their earlier cruelty, began to greet him politely. Though many still held on to prejudice, Elias's dignity and kindness made it harder for them to cling to their hate. Then one summer night, everything changed. A fire broke out in the town. The flames spread quickly, swallowing houses, barns, and shops. People screamed, running into the streets. Elias rushed to help, carrying buckets of water, guiding families to safety. Suddenly, he heard a voice, faint and terrified. It was the cry of a child. Elias looked and saw a white family's house engulfed in flames. Through the smoke, he glimpsed two small children trapped inside with their mother. No one dared to go in. The flames were too strong. The townsfolk stood frozen in horror. But Elias did not hesitate. He covered his mouth with a cloth, pushed through the fire, and disappeared into the smoke. Minutes passed, agonizing minutes. Then, at last, Elias emerged, coughing, his clothes burned, but carrying both children in his arms. Behind him, their mother stumbled out, alive. The crowd gasped. The man they once shunned, the man they thought unworthy, had risked his life for them. For a moment, silence fell. Then the father of the family rushed forward, tears streaming down his face. He clasped Elias's hands and whispered, "You saved them. You saved my family." From that day, the town could no longer ignore what Elias had shown them. Prejudice began to wither. People greeted him with respect. They sought his advice, invited him to meals, and, for the first time, treated him as an equal. But Elias never let pride take root. He simply smiled and said, "I did what any man should do. A life is a life, no matter the color." Years later, when Elias passed away, the whole town gathered for his funeral. Black and white, rich and poor, they all came together to honor the man who had once been a slave, yet who had taught them the true meaning of freedom. On his gravestone, they carved the words he often spoke. Worth is not in the color of skin, but in the goodness of the heart. Elias's life reminds us that freedom is not just the absence of chains, it is the presence of equality. Racism is another kind of slavery, one that imprisons hearts and minds. True strength lies not in hate or revenge, but in love, dignity, and kindness. Through his courage, Elias showed that one man's goodness can change an entire community. His story teaches us that no race is superior, no skin is lesser. Humanity is one.